Hello, dears, and welcome back to podcast number 6. Today we'll be talking about the academic reading test. Reading is horrible, reading is daunting, reading is demanding, reading is exhausting. Made a little rhyme. I'm not an avid reader myself, so especially when you have to read something which you don't like, then yes, double trouble. However, there are a few things that I would like to tell you about reading, the format of the exam, how it's marked, and some strategies. First of all, you need to know that the IELTS academic reading is designed to test your ability to read and understand passages on academic topics from authentic sources, from journals, books, newspapers, and magazines. And it's not really a reading test, it's more of a comprehension test. The test lasts for 60 minutes, and there are 40 questions to answer on three separate passages. There are 2 to 3 different tasks on each passage, and these test a range of different reading skills. Um, there are going to be quite a lot of skills that you need to know, and we're going to talk about them. I'm going to give you a number. There are 13 main types of reading tasks, and um, multiple choice, sentence completion, and you may find any of these tasks in part of the exam. Uh, Passage 1 tends to include simpler language and ideas than the other two passages. As I told you, they progress, they get more difficult as they progress, because passage 3 tends to include the most complex language and ideas. And of course, the tasks and questions also tend to become more challenging as you work through the test. Just to give you a little bit of um, to tell you about reading tests in numbers, passage 1 you have to read about from passage 1 from passage 3 you have to read about 950 words, so it's about, I don't know, 3,000 words, something like this. Yeah, I know, it's quite a lot. Okay, so um, the tasks and questions mostly follow the order of information in the passages. Some of the tasks require you to look at visual information. You can have a diagram, you can have a flow chart, and then connect the information in the reading passage to this. The instructions advise you to spend 20 minutes on each reading passage, and all your answers have to be copied on to the answer sheet within the 60 minutes of the test. So you don't have that extra time at the end of the test to transfer your answers just in the listening. You don't have that luxury. But let me give you a little bit of a tip. If passages get more difficult as you progress, then you don't have to spend 20 minutes for each passage. Let's say you spend 30 minutes on passage 1, 17 minutes on passage 2, and 20 minutes on passage 3. And if my maths is correct, that will give you what? 3 plus 7, 10 minutes. That will give an extra 10 minutes for you to transfer the answers from the question paper onto the answer sheet. However, but nonetheless, this will only work if you've been practicing a lot. So don't try to apply this strategy in the actual exam, because it won't work. You need to build stamina. You need to practice a lot with reading tests using the 13, 17, 20 method until you get the hang of it, and then you can do it confidently. All right. So let's move on to passage 1. In this part of the test, you will read a passage that contains mostly factual information about a topic. There are 2 or 3 tasks and a total of 13 questions for you to answer. In order to answer the questions, you need to use the skills of skimming and scanning to locate specific information, and then to answer detailed questions relating to the information. Skimming, yeah, is think about skimmed milk. Yeah, skim milk, what? You get the main idea. So you run your eyes quickly down to the text and you get the main idea. Scanning is like when you're a bird and you swoop down to locate specific information. For example, you may be asked to read statements about the passage and decide if they're true, false, or if no information is given about them. Or you may be asked to write the missing information in gaps in a table or set of notes. This is what you have to do in passage one. In passage two, again, you'll read a passage that contains mostly factual information about a topic, but may also contain some opinions and arguments. And this is where the part gets tricky because you have subjective and objective. And there are 2 or 3 tasks on a total of 13 questions for you to answer. And in order to answer the questions, you need to use, again, global reading skills, in addition to the skills of skimming and scamming to locate specific information. And the tasks in this part of the test often test your ability to match information in the questions with the relevant sections or feature of the passage. And there are also often tasks where you have to complete the missing information in a set of sentences or notes. For example, when the ideas from one section of the passage are summarized. And we're moving on to the very last part of the text of the test, which is the most difficult. Again, you have to read a passage that contains mostly detailed information and arguments about a topic. And here, the writer may be expressing an opinion or reporting and commenting on the opinions of others. This is why it's a little bit tricky. There are 2 or 3 tasks and a total of 14 questions. And in order to answer the questions, you need to use a wide range of reading skills, including skimming, scanning to locate specific information or ideas, global reading skills, and reading to understand detailed arguments. And the tasks in this part of the test often ask you to choose the correct answers from a list of alternatives. So you have multiple choice questions. You may have to answer multiple choice, match the ideas and information you read to one answer in a list of options. Often there are questions which require you to read statements and decide whether they agree with the views of the writer or not, or whether there is information about this in the passage. Okay, so this is about the test. Let me tell you about the marking. Each number question in the academic reading is worth 1 mark. It's pretty simple. It's very similar with listening. If you write the correct answer, then you get the mark. If your answer is wrong for any reason, you don't get the mark. Again, no marks are taken off for wrong answers, so it's always a good idea for you to write the answers, even if you're not sure. In the questions where you have to write a word, a number, or a short phrase, it's important to read the instructions carefully. The instructions tell you how many words you can write, and they're usually in bold and italic, so they're very easy for you to understand. So if the instructions say write 1 word for each answer, then you must write only 1 word. If you write 2 words, you don't get the mark, even if the information is correct. It's 90%, I mean, similar to listening. The words you write must be spelled correctly. Again, most of the words are taken from the passages, directly taken from the passages, and they're common. Both UK and US spellings are accepted. You have to write clearly. Your handwriting has to be clear. Otherwise, if individual letters are not clearly written, you won't get the mark. You can write again in uppercase or lowercase. It really, really doesn't matter. In questions where the answer is a letter or a Roman numeral, you only write the correct letter or numeral next to the number on the answer sheet. Never write the words next to the letters in a set of options. Okay, it's very important. We're done with the exam and with the marking. Let's talk about strategies. And obviously, we're going to have strategies before, during, and at the end. Before the test is a very good idea, as with the previous modules, to familiarize yourself with the format of the reading test, to know exactly what you have to do in each of the different tasks, uh, so you're confident. Again, it's very important for you to practice within the time limit. so you can see exactly how long it takes you to complete each of the passages and the different task types. Um, so you know exactly where you have to practice. If you're finding one of the task types particularly difficult, and if it's taking too long or getting the answers wrong, again, listen back to the tips and the tactics, and then check that you're using the right approach. It's a lot of trial and error. You have to see exactly what works best for you. Just like with listening, try to make the most of every opportunity to practice your reading. Anything. I mean, just s- spend some time, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, not to dumb scroll on TikTok or Instagram or whatnot, and read a newspaper, a magazine article in English as often as you can. And again, use the internet to your own advantage. Um, while you're reading the articles, think about the type of language the writers are using to make their points, how the writing is organized into paragraphs, and how the ideas in the passages are developed and linked together. Practice skimming and scanning skills. These are very, very important. And again, don't try to understand every word the first time you read something. Read quickly to find out how the writer has organized the information, and then decide which sections you need to read in more detail. During the test, I strongly recommend to read the passages in order. This is why you have one, two, three. Yeah, remember, passage one is the least complicated. So again, don't spend more than 15 minutes, okay? Let's say 15 minutes. But even if you have to spend more than 15 minutes, don't spend more than 20 minutes on it. If you can finish the question on passage one in less than 20 minutes, then brilliant. You have more time for passage three, which is the more complex. Also, remember that the tasks follow the order of information in the passage. So it's best to answer the questions in numerical order. And most tasks refer to a specific part of a passage. So your first job is to make sure you've located the correct part. Remember to use the most appropriate reading skills for the type of task you're doing, because most tasks involve different reading skills, skimming and scanning to find the relevant part of the information, then reading that part carefully to answer the detailed question. It's okay. It's okay for you to write on the question paper. In fact, I think it's a very good idea to write question numbers in the margin, right? And mark the text to show which section are relevant to each task and each question. But remember to transfer them towards the end of the test. Um, each part of the passage is usually only tested once. So when you move on to a new task, you usually need to look at the next section of the passage. And some matching tasks are the exceptions here. Use the words and information in the questions and the task to help you locate the relevant information. And remember, you have to write one answer. If you're not sure, again, don't write two answers. If you do that, you won't get the mark. So don't give them alternatives to the examiners. Um, Time is also very important. Remember that you have to enter all your answers onto the answer sheet within the 60 minutes, and there is no extra time to copy your answers in the reading test, and you won't be given extra time. Um, as I said, you can write your answers on the question paper, but it's best for you to copy them onto the answer sheet as you complete each task. And if you leave all the copying until the end, you may run out of time or make a mistake if you're under time pressure. Um, Check very carefully that you put your answers next to the correct number on the answer sheet, and keep checking that you haven't made a mistake in the numbering. Um, Guessing also works. If you don't know the right answer to a question, always write something. You never know. And if you finish before the 60 minutes is up, go back and double check that you have put all your answers in the correct boxes. At the end of the test, everything will be collected in both the question paper and the answer sheet, but only the answer sheet um, will be sent to be assessed. Those will count. The question paper is going to be destroyed. Okay, and that's kind of it about the academic reading test. We'll move on to the general reading test and the other parts of the exam, but that will be all for today. Thank you very much for listening. I do hope you're going to join me on my next podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself. Keep learning, keep exploring. Bye bye.